Congratulations, guys. This was literally one of my favorite episodes, like Outlander episodes ever. And I mean it.
Thank you so
and it was
much.
a lot because of your storyline, obviously. It has drama, comedy, and your story is completely batshit amazing.
That's a great description.
That's one word for it. Yeah.
Okay, so confession, I do call you guys Lizzie and Twizzy, mainly because like Lizzie, I like can't keep them like straight. I don't know who's who.
I constantly have to ask Paul when we're filming. I'm like,
and sometimes I don't even know. I'm like, who am I? I don't even know.
I know. I write recaps for you guys, and I like literally am like Googling like Kezzy, Jezzy, like so in all recaps going forward.
Lizzie, that's my favorite.
Okay, so Caitlin, the first thing I want to start off with is that brilliant scene between you and Caitríona. It is comedy at its best because it's so sincere on one side, and you can tell Claire is trying to hold it together, and like she's like, "Oh my god." So break down that scene for me. How many takes did it take? Did you guys laugh a lot? Go for it.
So, funnily enough, that scene was the scene that I auditioned with.
Okay.
So to come back round to doing it, 3 or 4 years later was like some full circle moment, very bizarre of thinking, bloody hell, how far have I come? And that I'm now doing it, that felt really special to be doing it, and especially sat across from Caitríona. It felt like a moment where, I've been in the show for a while now, and this is the biggest scene that I've had, and it's kind of the crux of Lizzie's storyline, and it just felt like everything fell into place a little bit, being able to do it. It was, it was quite an emotional day for me, which I did not expect because it is hilarious. But it just felt very, I think what I had to do, because obviously on paper, what Lizzie is saying is comical, but exactly like you said, it is not funny for her at all. It is so earnest and so honest and so vulnerable what she's sharing with someone like Claire. And so in order to get into that headspace, I really had to step aside from anything that I was imposing onto it, which was, I think this is quite funny, or or a bit weird, or anything like that, and get into Lizzie's mindset, which is, it's not at all. It's innocence and it's love, and it's, to her, it's life or death, and she's confronted with someone like Claire, who she adores so much. And kind of parallel to that is me doing this huge scene with Caitríona, who I adore so much. So it felt like there was these parallels going on, and it just felt very exposing for her to be sharing all this information, such intimate information as well. And
very.
Yeah, and I think, I think what makes it work is that she is so certain about what she's saying, and for her there is no confusion, there is only love. And I think that's what she struggles to understand, why other people can't see how amazing this is, and everyone should be so happy for her, and that she's struggling to get her head around that. And but I think you
nailed it. Like, honestly, you got the balance between, you guys got the comedy, but you also start to feel for Lizzie, and you're like, oh, she's right. Like, who wouldn't? I think in my recap, I've written something like, let's face it, if Claire had a chance for 2 Jamies, she might not say no.
This is it. This is it. And
but then again, they're so codependent. She might be like, no, 1 Jamie's fine.
But I think we understood that it had to be that. It had to be so serious, because in the end, I think it's Claire being able to see that in Lizzie is what allows Claire to think, okay, this isn't just 3 people, having a little moment in a bar over there. Exactly. Like, they're not going to grow out of this. It's something deeper than that. And I think maybe perhaps Claire sees in Lizzie, Lizzie has been surrounded by Brianna and Claire, and has seen how strong their relationships are, and the fact that they would defy all odds to be with the people that they love. And I think Lizzie will do that. She's learned from the best, and she's going to do it.
I love I love that. That's a great dissertation on like that whole scene. But did you laugh at all? Because I just have to say, when you delivered the line, "We got slippery with the ointment," I actually died. In that moment, I was like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, how did you do that?
Believe me, in rehearsals, me and Caitríona were just looking at each other. I think the line for me was the wee paps,
The wee
like
paps.
describing Paul's nipples, thinking
Oh.
my granddad's gonna see this. Was quite funny. And Claire's Caitríona just looking at me like, "Yeah, you've got to say that," and I'm like,
Yeah,
"I
I did Google "wee paps"
Wee
because I was
paps.
like, "What's that? Is
Yeah.
that?"
No, it's
where
all
are
I
we
call them now. Free the paps.
Hashtag wee paps.
I love
But you
it.
do just what you're talking about, Reshma, but you do play it with such honesty, Caitlin, and like with such a vulnerability that by the beginning of the scene, you're like, what is this? But by the end of it, you convince us that this is, no, it is right. They do love each other so much that it's rooted in love that it just makes sense, because you absolutely nail that scene.
And you can see her convince Claire to the point that Claire's like, you have Jamie to deal with now, best of luck. So Paul, I want to switch to you, and this is a question for both of you. Like, when you guys read this scene, or when you first read it in the books, because I imagine both of you have read the book, what was your reaction? Like, were you like, oh my gosh, so excited to play this? Or
I think it was that, yeah, absolutely. When I first got my edition size through, it was, and then researching the role, I was like, wow, I've never heard of anything like this before. It was brand new to me, and also to have a chance to play a dual role was like something that never entered in my head in my life. So it just seemed like a dream. But it is just that we've been talking about. It is all rooted in love, and it is rooted in a respect for each other as well. That to have the chance to kind of portray that and explore that was like really exciting. To make this kind of weird and mad situation, kind of ground it in some sort of reality and make it make sense to an audience, was something that was, I think for both of us, was just something we're really, really excited to kind of give that a shot.
You did it beautifully. I mean, the way you just like struck the balance between comedy and drama. And Paul, what about the stable scene? Can you break that down for us?
Oh
I know
God, yeah, absolutely.
Jamie yelling at you, but
yeah, it was like, seeing Sam Heughan yell at you is it's an experience and a half. I think because that was the first time, obviously, Lizzie has been talking to both Jamie and Claire about this. So she's had the kind of experience of hearing the other side and not just within their own kind of parameters. It was the first time for the twins to kind of see like, oh, this is not good, or this has affected Jamie, who they look up to and are inspired by and you know, like adore. I see him like angry by this. It does fill them with a kind of guilt and remorse about what they did, but they do hold strong, and they do kind of keep fighting for it. And we see that in the next scene with the kind of second-hand fast between with Roger and Brianna in their cabin. That is the kind of marriage that they kind of dreamed of. It's a celebration of their love. It's a celebration of their happiness. And I think for you, Caitlin, you mentioned before to share that happiness with Brianna as well. Kind of journey that you both went on. It was just lovely. But I think definitely that scene in the barn sets up that other scene just so brilliantly.
Does. Was there, as actors, for the four of you, because you know it's you, Sam, and Caitríona, was that like an exciting scene for all of you guys to play? Were you guys nervous that day? You know, I feel like you haven't had a scene like that in a while.
Yeah. I had such a laugh that day. I thought it was so fun, because I think as well we were aware that this was the lightness within the episode, so kind of leaning into that, like when Jamie gets them to pick the little bits of hay.
Yeah.
Will we see anything on the blooper reel from that?
Oh God, potentially.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly.
I think as well, like what's so brilliant about this storyline, what it does so well is it, you know, it's futuristic even by our standards. So you know, you're confronting your own biases or your own takes on monogamy through playing the characters. So that's really fun to explore that side of it, and makes it even more exciting to play characters set, you know, hundreds of years ago, because it's even more of an impact what they are doing within that time.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I mean, you convinced me. I was laughing, and then I was like, oh, this is so interesting. It's like such a like strange dynamic to cover. Let's go back to the beginning. What did you guys do to prepare for your roles? Did you both binge the show? Caitlin, I know you've been on it longer, but I want to ask, when you were watching the show, because I assume you did, what were like the best scenes that stood out to you where you're like, oh, I'm so excited to do this?
Yeah. The scenes, in terms of scenes that I'd seen, or the scenes that I knew that I was going to be stepping into?
The scenes that you had seen when you binged it to prepare.
Right. So so I got the part, and then I had a month before we started filming in which I binged the entire show. That became my 9-to-5 job, was watching Outlander. And it was, I'm not complaining, it was a great job. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I became a fan. But what was really cool was that, you know, I'd never really heard of Sam and Caitríona prior to this, because this is kind of the show that made them so huge. So to be watching something knowing that they're going to be your colleagues was a very strange experience, because I watch a lot of TV, and, you know, I'm the same as everyone else in terms of fanning over people. So to be thinking, those people, I'm going to be sat at a table doing a read through with them in a month, that's crazy. And then to actually, you know, to actually step into the read through and waiting for Sam and Caitríona to walk in, and then they walked in, and I was like, oh my God, they're in Outlander. And then I was like, I'm in Outlander. My God, this is crazy. So that was pretty wild. I mean, the scenes that stood out for me were always the relationship ones between Claire and Jamie, but also Claire and Frank. Like, and I think what's so amazing about the show is that they do both of them justice, and they tackle a relationship in a way that I've never really seen before, in terms of, you know, normally it's a build up to a couple getting together, or you know, whereas this is so much about once they get together, then what happens, how do they stay together? You know, that's so interesting to watch a couple grow on screen, and this epic love story that, you know, travels through time and space.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, most movies and television shows end right when they get together, and this actually shows you what it takes to be in a marriage. I think it's one of the best marriage portrayals on TV.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and how to stay in a relationship. I mean, you know, nowadays people aren't getting kidnapped so often, but but they navigate it very well.
I mean, they've just been through so much, and I once wrote that this is a show that makes you love, and I think that your storyline actually does that too, just in doubles. So Paul, for you, do you remember binging the show? Do you remember a scene that stood out?
I do. I think for me it was just watching the show. It was just exciting to have the idea in my head to be a part of a show that's just so kind of vital in telling Scottish history. It's quite rare that you see a TV show kind of delve into Scottish history in a way that Outlander does, and in a way that makes you fascinated and proud to be from the country that you are. I a lot of the kind of historical points like discussed within the show I never got taught at school. We kind of focused on the kind of wars of independence, which is like another 500 years before Outlander. But to kind of see this fascinating time of the Jacobites and the rebellions, and then immigrating to America, and then kind of laying the foundations of what America is today, it was just to be a part of those kind of scenes, of those kind of moments, was just quite it was just so exciting to be a part of, because I did feel emotional watching it and seeing the kind of history of my country kind of pan out.
So when you first started on the show, you know, similar to what Caitlin said, what were your first impressions of Caitríona and Sam? Jessica said, I chatted with her last week, she said, they're so tall. They're like,
she is a tiny human though. I think
she's a little girl. Yeah.
True. But Paul, what have you like learned from working with both of them?
Oh God, so much. From the moment I met them and worked with them, they have been just so down to earth and so open and so welcoming as well. For Sam, he is just a powerhouse. He is just a morale booster. He gets everybody's morale boosted on set. And it's just an absolute joy to work with. And for Caitríona, likewise the same. And also her creative thinking as well. She can see a scene in a way that I didn't think of before, and the way the director didn't think of before. Remember that in my first scene with her, which was, I think, when she's looking at my tonsils, just the way she was kind of like having conversations with the directors. It was she's just amazing
as well. She's like the most intelligent person I've met. She's
Yeah,
Yeah.
fearlessly intelligent.
Well, I actually was going to ask about, the ether scene. First of all, I think your characters are like Claire Fraser's lab hamsters or rats. Is it hamsters or rats? I don't know.
Oh, we're happy to oblige. We're happy to oblige.
Hamsters. And, there's some wild scenes that you two have had to do. So the ether scene and the tonsils. And so, Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about the tonsil scene? Like, did you have to rehearse that? Were there bloopers around that? I would imagine that's hard to get through.
Oh, there was a lot of bloopers with that. I think in the season 5 blooper reel, there was a lot of me just coughing up blood. I think, well, these are great because I think the brilliant thing about Outlander and the books as well, because Diana is a historian as well. She researches extensively, as does the show. So everything is rooted in accuracy, and we have on set, we have I think we call her Dr. Claire. She's also called Claire as well, who's a doctor who works in a real life hospital, and she comes on and advises the kind of medical procedures. So me and Caitríona met up with her 2 or 3 weeks before we shot that, to kind of discuss the scene and how we were going to like shoot it and what they kind of like, because I think Dr. Claire initially, she was like, when I first read this, I was thinking, no, he's going to die. You couldn't do that operation back then. But then she had to think of it because she is so clever and went, actually, we could maybe do this. And that's the way we play out the scene.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fake blood consumed, which actually tastes really good. Like you see all these like actors in there talking about like battle scenes and be like, oh yeah, the blood, it was just so much. It's like, dude, it tastes so good. Like I don't know what they're talking about. But there was a lot of
battle scene. How much did they have to intake? But that was a lot of blood. It's like a very bloody surgery, right?
God, yeah. I think one of the bloodiest. I mean, somebody might want to fact check me on that, but like, I think that's what Dr. Claire said. I feel like I say it with such confidence that it must be right. It was really fun to do. It was really intricate to do as well. So there's a lot of technical things we had to like. We would begin shoot the scene, we'd have to pause, put the blood in, like things like that. There was a lot of like magic involved.
Yeah.
But it's like total credit to the kind of VFX. Technicians.
I thought you were your character. I was like, oh, he's gonna die.
He is gonna die.
Claire Fraser's hand in his mouth.
And there was a lot of Caitríona Balfe's mouth. I kind of went, I'm so sorry. And she was like, no, it's fine. It's just another day in Outlander.
Okay, so I have fan questions for you, as you guys saw on Twitter. We'll get to those. But I want to play a little Outlander cast game with you called Superlatives. And so out of your cast members, who would you say is the funniest?
I would say Richard Rankin. I say there's a lot of like jokes on set. Like the set is just so comfortable to work in because we do have everybody's got good banter. Yeah, Richard Rankin, man, the jokes that he tells. I remember I did a scene where I'm just shoveling poo, and I'm thinking like, I need to focus on the poo. It's my first job. I need to do a good job focusing on this poo. And every take, he's just making me laugh all the time. I'd have to say Richard, but John's dead funny as well.
I think John Bell for me. John Bell.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
He's a fan of yours too. When I chatted with him. And okay, the most quiet on set, if that's anyone.
Quiet.
Oh, I've stumped you.
Yeah. Very forthcoming and okay. I wouldn't say.
Well, I was going to ask who's the chattiest.
Sarah.
Sarah's the chatty. Yeah.
This is Bug.
This chat. Yeah.
Who's the best dancer?
John Bell.
Oh, John, yeah, absolutely. He's TikTok
John
dances.
Bell. I've seen him. I've seen his
absolutely.
TikTok. Yeah.
Flawless.
Who is the best singer?
Richard's a good singer.
David Berry.
I've
seen his Instagrams. Also, I've been to a convention where an audience member forced him to sing, and it was beautiful.
All right. Who is most like their character?
Sam?
I think Caitríona maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she switches into Claire in a second, but the intelligence and like the integrity and everything.
Yeah.
The strength. Yeah.
Who is least like their character?
John Bell.
Just thinking that. Who is the most competitive in like a good way?
I don't know.
I act like you're racing on set or something. I doubt it. But
racing.
I've never got a competitive vibe from anybody.
Competitive. He's into games. I mean, I've played a couple of board games with John Bell, and he is very competitive.
I can imagine John being
Ticket to Ride. You don't want to play that with
it's a good game.
We'll give him that one.
rules.
Who has the highest alcohol tolerance?
That would be me.
People. Definitely not me. Sophie is very good with a whiskey.
I asked her the same question. She actually voted for herself, but then she also then was like, "There's video that might counteract this."
I know. I'm thinking that I've definitely seen Sophie.
She mentioned a floor and some whiskey.
John's quite good with his drink as well, to be honest.
John is good with the drink. I feel like we're giving John too many points, though.
I know we are giving.
Who is the funniest when they've had too much to drink, or like the lowest tolerance?
I think
John just erupts into dance.
I think that could be me. I went round to Sophie's and she gave me some of that whiskey, and I was very drunk.
Yeah.
I think I criticized her new sofas that she bought.
Oh wow, you're just like a truth teller. I love it. Okay, which cast member has a hidden talent that the world needs to know?
Oh, what have I seen?
I feel like they're not really hidden.
You're really good at belly dancing, aren't you, Paul?
Guys, I'm amazing at belly dancing. Yeah, I'm a champion, one would say.
Do it. Show
accents. Kate, I'm not doing that's not happening. Caitlin, I'm not actually good at belly dancing. Just have me on. But Caitlin's amazing at accents. She's really good at accents.
Wait, do you do impersonations?
No,
you can do. You have done, and they're very good.
I'm just
not
saying.
An impersonation. I'm all right with an accent, depending on the accent. I do Scottish for a living, so.
You do Scottish for a living.
Okay, well, there we go. We'll get you. I would like the belly dancing video to be released on social.
Never happening.
Caitlin, this is your challenge. I think you can do it. Okay, so I did ask you, Caitlin, in London, if you had to pick one character as Caitlin to go out on the ridge with, who would it be? And I just want you to know, a lot of your other cast members picked Lizzie. So Paul. Caitlin and I had this conversation and it was hilariously awkward. And Caitlin, I don't know if you remember what we talked about, but I might release the video, but it doesn't make me look good. We were talking about Jemmy beforehand, and then you go, I'd go out with the twins. And I thought about the two little actors who played Jemmy, and I was like, and then you just see my face. I was like,
remember this?
I was like, you're gonna drink with the little twins? So now I've just told everyone what I did, so I have to release this. Paul, how about for you? What character would you pick? And it can't be Lizzie because you've already married her.
That's what I'm gonna say. I feel Lord John Grey might be a good one to get drunk with. Because he's always got good stories, and he's quite held and quite reserved. If you got him like just slammed, I wonder like what kind of like persona would come out.
I feel like he'd do poetry about Jamie.
Yeah,
like it would just be a lot of Jamie poetry.
It'd just be quite sad.
He's a sad drunk. So, all right, let's get to the fan questions. Okay, Becca wants to know, Paul, do you get 2 paychecks?
Yes, I demand that with all my roles, no matter if I'm playing 2 pins. 2 paychecks. To be fair, that is probably the most common question I've had from pals as well. Like, did you get paid twice? And I've heard it so much times.
It's a good dad joke. I like it.
It's a dad joke. I think pretty sure my dad also made that joke. But no.
I mean, maybe they're trying to help you negotiate your season 7
contract. Yeah, unless the fans.
All right, Caitlin's Coterie. I think you know them. Did I say that right? Loves the Lizzie and twin story and thought it's a much needed fun and lightness. But she's always felt for Lizzie that it's actually a very deep and sincere storyline. How did you approach playing Lizzie and all these complexities? And we have a lot of questions, and you kind of answered it, but I want to.
I think it's kind of what I said before about understanding that for Lizzie it is life or death, and it's no joke to her. And what we might find funny is definitely not how she feels about it. So kind of putting aside the things that I might think of it and really digging in there has been really fun to do. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, ready? The pollinators. Paul, that's a good one. What do you do to differentiate between the 2 twins now that both of them can hear and speak?
That's a really good question. So before, it was kind of focusing on both are kind of like roles in the Ridge. For Josiah, it was a hunter, so his posture would change, he'd be more upright. And Kezi, we focused on the fact that he's partially deaf, so we had a consultant come on, B, who's a friend of mine, to kind of help shape that performance and make it as authentic as possible. But now in season 6, the twins have kind of moved forward, and Kezi's kind of getting back into the groove of things. We did have a kind of voice quality for Kezi.
Yes.
So he still has the kind of remnants of what he had in season 5, but slightly kind of dimmered. And also because he used his hands to communicate quite a lot, this would not be noticeable at all in season 6, but I had a kind of fidget with my hands when I played Kezi, because he's always wanting to use his hands.
Yeah.
So if you have a shot that's a bit lower, you might see me kind of twiddle my hands a bit.
Oh, that's good for us. I
The
feel
wee
like,
subtleties, yeah.
Caitlin, I feel like both of us could use that hint.
Oh, definitely.
Outlander Pub Quiz would like to know, is there a funny scene that you've had with yourself that was like hard to perform? And are there particular challenges in filming scenes with yourself?
Challenges, I think it is. I think from the get-go, I had to kind of think of it how I was going to play this. And I remember watching an interview with Tom Hardy, because he played 2 roles in that movie Legend, and he talked about, like, I would just imagine what I would do, because I'm going to play both of them eventually. So I think those reactions I would just imagine to do. Sorry. And I have like great doubles that I work with as well, who just give so much. And to be honest, I steal from them all the time as well. So it's not been major challenges, but like, it's always a new learning day when the twins are on set, because there's a lot of magic involved.
Amazing. All right, we have one last question because we're running out of time. So I'm gonna pick, all right, what's one piece of advice that you would give Jamie and Claire, and then one piece of advice you'd give your own character? Caitlin, do you wanna start?
Oh gosh, throw me at the deep end. One piece of advice that I'd give to Jamie and Claire. I just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing really well. You're strong, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, you're going to go really far in this life.
You and Claire are both like bigamists, if you think about it.
Yes, I have learned from the best.
Good husband.
Yes. We talk about it often in the kitchen over a little whiskey. What advice? Just be safe. Stop getting yourself into such pickles. Take the easy route sometimes. And advice I'd give to Lizzie: hide things better, be a better liar. Keep safe and use protection.
That's not going to happen. I think we that ship has sailed. Paul, final question for you: what piece of advice would you give to your character and Jamie and Claire?
Oh, Jamie and Claire, I think what Caitlin was saying, just keep doing what you're doing. Also, maybe build Lizzie a new house, and she just doesn't have to live in the stables anymore, because she's living in those stables for too long. Yeah, keep doing what they're doing, because they're doing something right. Their love is still continuing on. But they do get into so many scrapes. So like, maybe just be selfish once in a while and be like, you know what, we're not going to help them, because that could endanger us. Exactly. For the twins, oh God, I think they should just take themselves not too seriously, just let loose, which they kind of do in this season. So more of that.
Something was happening with the twins. They definitely let loose. Guys, you are awesome. What a great episode. I think people are going to love it. So I can't wait to see the reaction online and everything. And Caitlin, I'm going to have to release that video where we're awkward in our interview. Cool.
So excited to see it.
All right, guys, have a great day.